USS Christmas is a really good film. This was released originally in 2020. It's directed by Stephen R. Monroe and written by Andrea and it stars Jen Lilley as Maddie and Trevor Donovan as Billy. And I learned a thing or two about the Navy. I wasn't sure how much I'd enjoy this because I'm not interested in the Navy in any strong way. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to connect with the film at all. But while it is about the Navy, it is actually about love and Christmas. And as I said, I learned a few things about the Navy, so pretty educational, and I really enjoyed this. Maddie is a reporter, and she goes on a tiger cruise. Now, I'd never heard of tiger cruises, but it's basically a Navy cruise that civilians are allowed to go on. And it's obviously, family members of people in the Navy and things. And while she's there, she meets Billy, who is a naval officer, and they connect. And they do a lot of Christmas activities together. Well, they do some Christmas activities together. Billy is not exactly a Christmas enthusiast, but he's a very likeable character. We get a decent amount of information about his backstory. And the same with Maddie, actually. They're very well written, well developed, and very likeable characters, both independently and then together. And the romance aspect is so believable. And I want to praise something specific, but it's a spoiler, but it's predictable, but I will praise it with a spoiler warning in a moment. But really, the whole film is worthy of praise. It's really interesting. Not only do we have the romantic aspect, or the romantic aspect with Maddie and Billy, Maddie is also trying to research for a story for the paper, a romantic story about two people who met in a similar situation a long time ago, and they've had this long marriage, and there are stumbling blocks. There are things that stop her from being able to get the research that she needs, and part of the film is about her trying to uncover that story. And it's certainly interesting and very sweet and heartfelt, but I was more interested in, well, partly the relationship with Billy, but also learning about the Navy. I didn't think I'd care, but actually it's really fascinating, and I really enjoyed that part of the film, whereas when I was going into it, I was thinking I'd probably enjoy the bits around that. But actually, I found that to be really interesting, so it definitely provided some education for me. We have quite a lot of Christmas, and some very likeable characters, a decent narrative structure, a great pacing. I don't have any complaints. USS Christmas is a really enjoyable film. I don't want to say it exceeded my expectations because I never expected it to be bad, but I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, just based on personal preference. So I enjoyed it more than I thought, but it's not that I thought that it wasn't going to be good. But either way, I had a great time watching it, and if it sounds like your kind of film, I really thoroughly recommend it. So the one thing that I want to praise that's a bit of a spoiler, this is the last thing that I have to say about the film, and I was very impressed. So this is technically a huge spoiler for something that happens, but to be fair, these films are generally predictable, but this is a huge spoiler for something that happens right at the end. And at the end, as we can imagine, Maddie and Billy reconnect, and they have this beautiful romantic moment, but it was slightly awkward. And that's exactly how it would be in real life, because they meet up after going their separate ways, mostly Maddie going her separate way, refusing to get into a meaningful relationship with Billy because she doesn't think the relationship will work. She doesn't want to be involved with somebody who's going to be away so much and constantly worrying about him. So that's why she stepped away from the relationship, but they come back together at the end. And Billy is awkward. He is really awkward and uncomfortable and not really sure about how to present himself or what the right thing to say is. And it really comes across, but in a very believable, convincing way. That is exactly how I would expect that character to react, because I'd say I've watched and reviewed over 500 rom-coms at this point, Hallmark-esque rom-coms, Hallmark Lifetime, etc. And I'd say this is the only time where the characters have behaved in that moment in a completely believable way. Because usually when we have that pivotal moment at the end of the film, when they come together and realise their destinies, they're both just so comfortable with each other. And you wouldn't act that way after having known each other for a few days or weeks or however long it happens to be in that particular film. This is so realistic, and I loved it. I don't really have a problem when it's unrealistic with the other films, but it was refreshing, and I really liked that part of it as well. So I just wanted to give a bit of praise there as well. But the whole film was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it significantly more than I thought, and I'm very, very happy to recommend USS Christmas.